Hello, all, and welcome to our 2025-26 Alumni Roundtable series. Today, we are excited to welcome alumni Leah Rang, Kyle Gray, and Dylan Platz for a roundtable discussion on how their English degrees help them with their future careers in a wide range of different types of jobs in tech. First, we're going to do some introductions, let you get to know everybody a little bit. Leah Rang is a New York City-based product manager and instructional designer for educational content and software products. She holds an MA in English Literature from UT-Knoxville and an MED, Master's in Education in Learning, Design, and Technology from Penn State. After teaching composition and rhetoric courses, she began working in educational publishing at Macmillan Learning, developing the very textbooks and assessment products she taught students from in Tennessee. Leah transitioned to content and software product management, information security, and compliance startup Thoropass, and is now a senior product manager at Transfr, an edtech and VR company providing immersive skill training as a pathway to upward mobility. She lives in Brooklyn and volunteers with Badass Animal Rescue. That sounds awesome. Our next participant is Kyle Gray. Kyle is content writer in the tech care company Assuron. He creates internal support materials in partnership with clients like AT&T, Google, and Verizon. On any given day, he researches, asks questions, drafts, edits, and reviews content enough to make any English major proud. He is passionate about creating great user experiences through concise communication and thoughtful design. Outside of his work, Kyle is a published poet, husband, and father of 2 boys. He is a Vol and English major for life. Our final participant is Dylan Platz. Dylan is the Salesforce product manager at Vanderbilt University, where he leads enterprise use of Salesforce CRM, Salesforce Marketing Cloud, and MyEmma to align technology solutions with institutional strategy. With more than a decade at Vanderbilt, he has driven major initiatives in digital transformation, governance, and product management, earning recognition in the Greater Nashville Technology Council Elite Cohort and multiple university awards. We are so happy to have you all back to talk about your very interesting career paths that I think a lot of our students don't always realize that, like, yes, English and tech can absolutely go together. I kind of want to start since I think a lot of your career paths are really interesting, and a lot of the stuff that you are doing is things that I'm not as familiar with. I just kind of want to start with asking if you could tell us a little bit about what each of you do kind of in your day-to-day in your current roles. And we're just going to do this popcorn style, so jump in as you desire.
I'm the only one not muted. I guess I'll lead us off. So my day-to-day switches a lot, and quite frankly, it used to switch all the time up until I got this role. I haven't been in this role the entire time I've been at Vanderbilt. I've gone from role to role to role. But nowadays, with Salesforce being my kind of baby at this stage, my day is spent having so many conversations, just like a never-ending amount of conversations with people. And it's really interesting to not always be the doer. In every role I've ever been, I've been the doer, and now I've got more of like a management perspective, and so I'm just constantly bringing groups together. And so, as we think about this in the context of being an English major and being able to communicate effectively, one of my major things, I've got customers all across campus that do not work with one another, right? They don't care about what another group is doing, they care about their role. I have to be aware of what the other groups want, and so I have to facilitate those conversations between groups and understand, hey, I might be talking to this person in this org and they want this thing, but what they want maybe doesn't match up with what this group wants. And I have to, kind of internalize that, do some problem solving, pull people together, have those conversations, do a lot of strategy and also a lot of problem solving types of conversations where I'm throwing ideas out at other people and seeing how they react to that. And so that's a lot of my day. Obviously, there's a lot of management boring stuff that I have to do as well that doesn't matter so much. But yeah, it's a lot of conversations.
I will jump into fully echo that. I have been in meetings from 9:30 this morning until this one right now, no stop. So it is very much part of what I do, but I also really enjoy that. I love the communication part. So my day-to-day also varies widely depending on where things are. The best part, the best days, I think, are when I am engaging with our customers or just generally the market. So, a big piece of what I do is understand what are people's problems in the space I'm at. So, the edtech space, particularly in skills training. So, we do things like teach or have virtual reality simulations that teach skills in being a construction laborer, basically giving people pathways that are not necessarily college routes, but pathways to upward mobility. So, really exciting work. We love being mission driven. But I talk to a lot of people who are in those fields. I talk to a lot of people who work in the community to help educate people or lead them to education for how they can do that. And so much of the English major mindset of kind of reading between the lines and analyzing, it's not necessarily what people say, but what they actually mean underneath it. And so understanding, as Dylan was saying, bringing those different perspectives together to realize, oh, they said something very different, but they really mean the same thing, or they're dealing with the same issue. And then what I do is take it to my design team, my engineering team, and say, here's the problem. Here are potential solutions. How do we solve this? We come up with a solution, and then I work with our engineers to build it. And so that is also a lot of communication and understanding your audience. It is rhetoric at the highest level of understanding how to talk to engineers differently than I would talk to a designer, very different audiences. And then translating that into a product. And right now we're about to do a big launch. So I'm also working on a lot of customer facing materials, kind of here are the new things we have, here's the training for our internal teams. So it really varies a lot, but a lot of those communication skills and analysis and synthesis skills are really key to what we do.
To borrow a word that Dylan said, I'm a doer, so I'm a content writer. It's basically technical writing. So I write for my company's internal knowledge base, and so our audience is a call center audience. It's a global audience as well. So the core of what I write is troubleshooting material, call flows, sales material, scripting, anything that will be helpful in the moment when our call center audience is trying to solve a problem for their customer. So kind of in tandem with that, every project might have its own KPI, whether it's solving an issue, whether it's selling a product. In my bio, we work with a lot of different industry clients like Google, Verizon, AT&T, all with our own individual goals. But ultimately, I'm writing for a call center audience, assisting customers and trying to solve that issue in the moment.
Those are all such very interesting jobs, and I love thinking about all of the overlap in these. Um, so I'm curious, how did you go from English major to working in a slightly more tech forward position? I'm assuming that wasn't quite a straight line for necessarily everybody.
Definitely not for me. It was not a straight line. So after graduating, I was a creative writing focus. So when I graduated, I was like, oh, I got to find a writing job. It has to be creative, has to, turn those gears in that sense. So I moved to Nashville. Didn't find a writing job right away. So I had to bounce around like retail and restaurant jobs. Eventually, kind of found like a niche position in the music industry, managing a print shop and mail center environment. Um, and then kind of realized that wasn't the right fit for me either. Really kind of built my skills like interning with Sundress Publications. Shout out to you, Aaron. um, Built some skills in graphic design, just finding a volunteer writing experience. And that definitely helped me eventually find this job at Asurion, where I've been for 4 years. So didn't set out to find a tech job. It kind of found me.
I'll go next. I didn't know if you were going to go backwards and then kind of just keep going, kind of snake draft this. My way was like super not a straight line. Although I will say it kind of started in college. Shout out Dr. Hurst on the call actually, because when I came into UT, my 100% my goal. And honestly, like in the back of my mind, still like my old man goal to an extent was be an English teacher and coach baseball. Like that was what I had intended. And fortunately, I came in with a lot of credits. I had some conversations with Dr. Hurst, with Dr. Hardwig, when I was there, and they both opened my eyes. Like, hey, English is more than just like literature classes, right? And so I went to the technical communications line, and then I wound up also adding the creative writing line. So I think Sundress probably a shared background for many of us. And wound up wanting to make myself as well-rounded as possible. So I minored in information science, and what that did was it opened up a lot of doors for me while on campus. So I interned with Y-12 National Security Complex, doing stuff for their style guide, again with Dr. Hurst. I interned with Oak Ridge National Lab as a writer. With Dr. Hurst, I interned with the National Science Foundation as a chemistry writer over the summer, and that was with Dr. Mark Littman, who had helped me get that. I did, the writing center, and so I started to kind of get my hand into all these different things. I was really starting to gravitate towards writing science, and when it was time to graduate, I was looking around at what I really wanted to do, and wasn't 100% positive which route I wanted to go in, although I was relatively sure I wanted to come back home to Middle Tennessee. And I had thought about going to grad school, specifically the University of Washington, for some human-centered design learning. And I had a conversation with my dad. This is not a joke. I'm going to say it as bluntly as possible, since we're being recorded. But I had mentioned to my dad that I was thinking about going to grad school, and my dad told me, "No, the hell you're not. You're getting a job," right? And so I did not go to grad school. I went and got a job. I started working at a startup in Brentwood, and the thing I learned at that startup within a couple months was like, if you hate something, you got to get the hell out, right? Like you cannot stay there if it's not a good place for you. And I did not like the startup. I didn't necessarily agree with decisions that were being made. And so I didn't have anything else lined up. I just bailed, right? Like it was so important for me as a senior in college that I graduate and have a job. And that's what I did. I graduated on a Friday. I started my job on Monday. And I accomplished that. I felt great, but then I was in a role that I didn't like. And so I jumped out of that and was unemployed for a little while, and just kind of looking around, and found a communications role at Vanderbilt that I was very interested in, and applied to that. Wasn't hearing back. Took it into my own hands, looked up the org chart for Vanderbilt's information technology group, found somebody that I thought might be like that job might go to, sent him a cold email. I was like, "Hey, I'd really like to interview for this," and I interviewed for it, and didn't get that job. It was awesome. I interviewed with like all these different people, and the vice chancellor for information technology at the time called me back and was like, "Hey, I don't want you to do this communications job. Your skill set is too varied. I'd rather you go into this other role." And so he pulled me out, and instead of putting me in a communications role, he made me an athlete, and called me a consultant, and put me on a bunch of different teams. I just jumped from team to team, going from fire to fire, problem to problem, and that's how I started to get into tech. And I think one of the big things that I learned in that whole smorgasbord that's led me to where I am is just don't say no to things. I just constantly say yes, right? Like, "Hey, you want to go figure this thing out?" Yes, of course I do. And it's worked really, really well for me.
Yeah, similarly, I did not have a straight line. Like if you had told me I would be working in tech, even in VR, when I was at Tennessee, I would have thought you were crazy. So, but I love that. And I love, to Dylan's point, taking your opportunities and not saying no to things, and really looking at every opportunity for what it can do to build something that is very unique, a career that is unique to you and where you want to go. So, on a more specific level, so I did not have your dad. I did go to grad school, and I had at the University of Tennessee, and was great, loved it. And what I learned in my literature studies was, as much as I love literature, and actually, shout out to like Dr. Sashigiri, who was my master's thesis advisor, really applied for PhD programs, but realized academia wasn't exactly where I wanted to go in the long run. So I was able to really lean into the teaching aspect, and so that was one of the great things about working, going to UT, was that I got to teach as part of an assistantship, and I continued to adjunct afterwards at UT. At Pellissippi, I run state, and loved teaching. And so when I moved to New York, I got a job in academic publishing, again, working from some of those same books, working on some of the same titles and textbooks. And what I realized in that, I think English major to publishing seems like a pretty natural progression. In a lot of ways, it was. But working on the academic side, especially, I built a lot of skills in what I'm doing now, product management. Now, it wasn't tech necessarily, but it was, who is our market? How do we sell this? Working cross-functionally with our marketing teams and our sales teams, and going to conferences, and doing all of that work, and developing a product with a brand identity and getting it out there and talking about it. And so I learned through this experience how much I loved that work, and actually really enjoyed the business side of it. And so I ended up having a connection with somebody who had gone to business school and made the transition specifically to tech, who was looking for a product manager specifically for content in an application at a startup that he was working at. And so basically, even though my role was essentially a product manager, my title was editor. So a lot of people didn't necessarily know what that entailed, including all of those business skills. But this guy did. He had done it before. So he brought me in, which was very fortunate. So, kind of a plug for networking, as we know, is also so crucial. Yeah, and then from there, really developed my skills in the product management in the tech world, understanding how to work with engineers, and all of that, and all kinds of tech processes. So that was my pathway, and I'm really glad where I was brought into that startup was in information compliance and security, which that is also something I never thought I would know anything about, in terms of, firewalls and all of this kind of stuff, but now do, and I'm glad I do. However, I have now pivoted back to where there's a nice merger of, again, getting the skills I needed along the way to do that tech product management. And now I'm back in the education space, which is a really good fit for me because I have those skills as well as the subject matter expertise and that teaching experience to really create a really great role for myself here.
I love that. I love how each of paths were a little bit different, and yeah, and like the ways in which we kind of we could like that Katamari ball our way through our different knowledge and learning as we kind of roll through things. How do you feel like classes like literature, creative writing, and maybe more obviously technical writing prepare you for work in your field?
I'll actually I'll throw something out here. I think one of the things that is super overlooked, and I've actually had this conversation with people I work with in the past, is creative writing classes. Actually, I think prepare you incredibly well, because in a creative writing class specifically, and Aaron, you did this to us all the time, but you have to grow some thick skin, right? Like you're spending a decent amount of your time writing something that you think is not terrible, and then you take it into the class and you have your classmates tell you how terrible it is, right? And you've got to sit there and eat it. And Aaron, I remember one of the rules was like, hey, you don't get to talk, right? There's no defending yourself. We're going to go around the room and everybody's going to tell you what they like and what they don't like, and you've got to eat that. And I think that's a really great skill to have in the workplace, because people aren't always going to like your ideas. People aren't always going to like the direction that you're trying to take something. I've certainly tried to solve problems the way that I think is the best, and my customers don't agree with me, and I have to be able to play with that. And so I think those creative writing classes are extraordinarily helpful in that respect. Obviously, I mean, we could talk about lit classes and how you're having to really read something and understand what somebody is truly saying, kind of like what Leah was saying earlier, right? Somebody might say something and not actually mean that. There's a pretty common comic that you see floating around LinkedIn every like 3 or so weeks, and it's either there's a Mona Lisa version and there's a tire swing version, and the whole concept is like what the customer wants. And it's just a branch with a string holding a tire, right? But what they've explained to you is something out of Six Flags and something crazy, but what the documentation says is something very different. What your product manager, your developer thinks is something different. So you wind up with something that's just totally wrong, and it's because people don't know how to communicate what they actually want, or they don't hear what the other person is actually communicating. And I think you build those skills a lot in lit classes and creative writing classes. But I'll stop talking and let the others go.
I mean, I definitely think about the poetry workshops, the screenwriting workshops where you just sit there and take it. I think that's definitely a good skill to have, though, like critiquing a piece and being articulate in that. It definitely applies to the tech industry where like feedback is necessary, kind of every step of the way. So if you're comfortable, just critiquing something, that's definitely a good skill to have in the tech industry. Um, Something I always think about and kind of like in regards to like taking all the poetry classes, just having that foundation of trying to write something in as few words as possible to get the message across. I try and like incorporate that daily when I'm writing something. Um, the call center audience needs step by steps to be very clear, and the goal for me is to write it in as few words as possible. So I think those poetry classes were really helpful with that.
Yeah, the thick skin is definitely a big piece of this. I was not a creative writing person in grad school, but definitely did that direction a bit more in undergrad, and yeah, feel it and still remember those classes almost more than anything else in that feeling. There are a few things that translate very specifically to some of the tasks that you do or I do in my job. So one of them is a very design, a UX oriented task is like creating customer personas, right? This is very like who is our customer, who is a representative, kind of fake customer or stand in for who our customers are. A lot of times they'll have fun names, like in my line of work with construction and safety, we have Seymour Safety, for example. But you identify who these people are. That is essentially character analysis. That is straight up the same thing in so many ways. So there are a lot of kind of really clear correlations. Another one is being able to write a really good paper, and an argument is so crucial. First of all, the drafting process. Nothing is ever right first out the gate. You got to be willing to take that feedback and refine it, to scope it back, to be a little clearer, to write more clearly, as you were just saying, Kyle, to communicate very clearly in that. But I also was told the other day, part of my job is really to have a strong opinion and to back it up. And that's what I do in a lot of my role, which is also very much storytelling. I am trying to convince the CEO of my company that we need to spend time and resources in a certain direction, and so I am telling a story about how it's going to impact this person, how it's going to impact our customers, and I'm doing that with anecdotes and I'm doing that with data, and I'm putting that together, and I'm just telling a compelling narrative. That is really how I get my point across more than anything. So there are a lot of ways that the classes from literature and creative writing really enable that kind of work and make me stronger for it.
That's so wonderful. And I'm so sorry about the tough skin. I'm glad it's helpful. Um, so I guess, what do you wish? I guess the next question is kind of like, what do you wish you had known as an undergrad or maybe even a recent graduate about the way an English degree might help you in this field? What are some of the potential entry points where English majors might consider starting to look for jobs in tech?
I'll go first again. I keep waiting to see one of y'all unmute before me, but this was the question that I thought about the most, assuming this question would come up, because I think that's the crux of it all, right? Like, how do I get into IT when everybody on this call is telling me that they accidentally got there? And I think internships are humongous, right? And talking to your professors and building these relationships with your professors, I think that's like the most important thing. And no one necessarily ever tells you like, hey, go be buddies with your professors. But it's extraordinarily helpful to become buddies with your professors. And you might feel like you're brown nosing or something by hanging out with the people that teach you, but like that's how education is supposed to be, right? In my opinion, at least. And getting that help with those internships is really going to open your mind, because while you're in college, I know it's a lot to ask to say, like, hey, look, go do your classwork, especially in English, where it appears that all of your teachers are unaware that your other teachers are also making you read, right? Like, you're reading so much all the time, and you've got to get all of that done. You've got to write your 15-page papers. Then for me to say, go do like a job, right? But it's so important because I was able to have a variety of different jobs while I was in college, and I was able to see what I liked more, right? Like, I did an internship with Scripps Networks doing SEO. Realized I did not like SEO, right? Like, that wasn't a way I was going to go when I was done with college. And so I think doing those internships is really big. I think another thing to consider, and this is something I would have never considered until I worked at Vandy, is look at consulting. Like, if you are young, if you are in a position where you're not necessarily tied down to a specific location, you want to maybe see the world, consulting is such a great opportunity to get into, because, like, you look at Huron, for instance. We work with Huron a lot at Vandy. Huron does a lot of higher ed consulting. They do non-higher ed consulting, but they're a big player in higher ed. And you are when a school is doing a project, they're not doing it by themselves, right? Almost no company is doing a project by themselves. They bring somebody in to help them. And so we spend a lot of money to basically add more staff through a consulting firm that comes in and helps us run a project. And so they'll have some bigwig come in who's making a lot of money, and if you want to become a principal at a consulting firm, you're going to make a lot of money. So keep that in mind, English majors. But when you first start off, you're probably making a lot of PowerPoints. You're like putting words on paper that are, to Kyle's point and Leah's point, like, you're not using too many words. You're getting the point across. In fact, funnily enough, we actually hired a consultant to do personas for us for donors. And so you can jump in and you can get that experience. You're traveling from place to place. You're often going out on a Monday and coming home on a Friday, kind of thing. It's different now post COVID, but you get to travel a lot. You get a lot of experience that way. You're surrounded by people at a bunch of different levels who are incentivized to teach you how to take their job in the future, right? And so it's a really good opportunity to get into more things. I'm always going to tell you, don't necessarily focus on one thing. I've never had that perspective my whole life. I've always been a multi-sport athlete. Go play all the things. Don't focus on one thing. Play all the things. It's going to grow you in different ways. It's going to grow different skills. I feel the same way with work and with figuring out what you want to do. Like, get that exposure into different locations, and then you'll know what you want to do. And I think consulting is a super, super, super good entry point into tech.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. It's not, you have to have a lot of skills in the tech industry. From my experience, it's not just writing. That's probably like a small percentage of my day to day. We also do the design work, so turning the draft into an article. So we use, different CMS platforms. So that, I think, going back to the internships as well, like having that on my resume was super helpful in getting this job. Just some other ideas, like hearing Dylan talk to, internships are key. I think you could also like start looking at job descriptions, like if you're interested in the tech industry, kind of analyze it and see what skills you're lacking, whether it's like the software or the design or anything else that you're interested in. I guess find a LinkedIn course or a tutorial. There's tons of stuff on YouTube as well. Something I wish I would have done as a recent grad is build skills in just interviewing. If you're interviewing in a tech position, you're probably going to have like at least a minimum 3 interviews with multiple panels. So get comfortable, just talking about yourself, talking about your resume, and just getting comfortable speaking in that sense. It's a very grueling process.
Yeah, I was putting in the chat, but the job I currently have, I had 6 different interview panels. It's a lot. Yeah. I think that's more entry level roles, you'll probably have fewer. But yeah, but generally, I can say I did not go the internship route. Obviously, it would have been huge. I worked my way up in various places, but I think the big thing is just for me, it's proven out in terms of career as well as how I've been able to find opportunities is where can I marry my skills with what I'm really interested in. And so for me, my entry point into publishing was education. And that's, I had the experience, like subject matter expertise, as well as the actual skills to, look at a manuscript and edit it very carefully. So things, something I'm doing on the side right now. I am also a crafter person, and I'm learning AI by literally creating an app through AI for that. So doing those kinds of things and showing your interest and then finding where, those skills, even if the job description or sorry, the job title might be completely misleading. So really looking at the skills and saying, how can I marry what I do and what I know and what I've done with some, subject expertise as well as the skills. I think that's the real key. And I know it depends on the company, but a lot of startups, one of our interviewing mottos or kind of principles is it's not necessarily what somebody has done, it's what they are curious about and what they are capable of, right? It's competency based. And so really being able to show that an interview process in some places is going to get you further than here's my portfolio of everything you asked for. I've crossed all, I've checked all the boxes, might not be as impressive as enthusiasm.
Those are all wonderful answers, and you also shortened my list of questions significantly, and that you covered several of my other things I was going to say, which means I'm going to say, Dr. Hurst, do you have any questions you would like to add?
Audio myself there. No, I mean, I'm just soaking in the wisdom here. And, the next generation, maybe two generations down from me now I'm feeling pretty old, uh, are seeming pretty smart and doing the right kind of things. I mean, I agree with all these philosophies. Um, the notion of retreading oneself, you might think that I didn't, but really I did. I was like two-thirds of the speakers here, or maybe all of you. I was interested in creative writing and still am. Now in my retirement, I'm writing children's literature. Dylan, the book I sent you was just one. Now I've written a full-length novel about two kids and their talking dog who go into the magical part of the Smokies and have various adventures. Yeah. Oh, thank you. I see a heart there, for literature. Dylan was saying in the chat, mind is blown. Think of customers like characters and break them down. Or somebody said that. So it is all these powers of imagination, communication, human interaction. They're very much related, but that's not common knowledge. So you've got a lot of people who are siloed off, and it's quite a shame. So this, I was asking Dylan a little while, I was saying, Aaron, where are all the students? The whole department should be listening to this, but you're recording this and you can share it in other contexts. So that's another of the wonders of technology here. Us old people do shake our head a lot and go, OMG, what's going on? Anyway, so I don't have questions so much as just applause. I think what you've done, you've not only retained your skills of imagination and interpersonal communication and creative writing, but you've integrated them with your current well-paying technical professional jobs, your writers, managers, masters of manager. Dylan, you got your master's degree, didn't you?
Nope, never went back. So you did help me. I should tell you this because I never gave you the update. Sorry, guys, for hijacking the call, but I actually applied at Vandy to go to take the leadership and organizational policy. I can't remember what it exactly was, but I applied for their program. Dr. Hurst was nice enough to write me a recommendation. So again, become friends with your professors. They've got your back for the rest of your life. And I did get accepted, Dr. Hurst. So I felt like super powerful when I got accepted at Vandy and then told them no. I declined and did not go into the program, even though they were very nice and had given me a scholarship to do it. But for any recording that happens here, I want to be like super clear. When and this is not a lie, I promise you I'm telling the truth when I tell you this. When I took my job at Vandy, I made a promise to myself that I would never spend any of my own money on anything with a Vanderbilt logo on it. And I wear shirts like this to work and get absolutely drilled all the time. The only Vanderbilt stuff that I own has been given to me by my employer. I refuse to spend money on anything with regard to the orange V, or the gold V.
Yeah. No. Well, okay. Okay. So and you've kept your moral convictions. I mean, all of this stuff is extremely, extremely impressive. Yeah, I didn't know that, Dylan. Actually, I thought you had gone into the program. I said, I know they're going to accept this guy. And so they did. And you made the further choices you wanted to make. I would just say that putting in another plug for the value of this kind of thing and however you disseminate it. And now that STC is defunct, I don't know what kinds, Aaron, of avenues there are for students to become professionalized, to meet professionals like this who have gone down these roads and get this kind of wisdom. I know you have an internship program that's ongoing, which you're involved in, and some other people. But however it's done, I'm sorry, I guess I'm preaching a little rather than asking a question. I hope you'll keep up this kind of thing. The kind of perspective and wisdom and advice that people like this are giving, I think, are absolutely invaluable for the upcoming professional people. And I mean, basically, that's all the English majors. They just don't know it. You know, one or two of them, I guess, will make a living through creative writing. All of them will continue to build their souls through it. And that's probably the most important thing. But they are all going to use their skills and talents. They just have to figure out, I say just out, and they need to keep building them, but they need to figure out where they fit, where they can enrich people, how they can make them valuable to employers and colleagues and missions and tasks of all kinds. And when they do that, they're going to be highly valued, as these people right here are that you've brought in to this forum. The thing that makes me sad is I used to get less now than before. I still get some, students saying, Doctor, I wish I had taken some of the TechCom courses, or I wish I had become involved, and what do I do now? So the sooner they can get this kind of wisdom into their system, I think the better their lives are going to be.
Yeah, and so much of it, I mean, for anybody, but probably especially for humanities majors and English majors, is you have to just find an entry point. And then, to Dylan's point, you can figure out what works for you, what doesn't, and then you make lateral moves, you make vertical moves, you figure out what works and you chase after it. And you might have to stay somewhere for a little while to gain those skills, but then you find the next thing. And also, I didn't even know, I mean, I don't even know if the role of product manager was like a very widely known one when I was leaving college or grad school. Definitely, I'm older than I look, so definitely not the same way it might be now. And I can tell you also, I've never taken a course in computer science or engineering, and yet I talk about databases and, service brokers and things every day. You can learn these things. Like it is generally about pursuing what you're interested in, knowing how to research, which also you learn in literature and English courses, finding the right information, knowing where to trust that information, and really making it work for you and building your own case, really. So I think there's so much value in just understanding how to navigate a professional space, which I can offer myself, anybody who's in these positions can mentor people. And so those networking and the connection, just finding those people and having those conversations can really help uncover some of that.
Yeah, and actually, this wasn't a question, Aaron, but that maybe it should have been. One of the things I'm thinking of as Leah's talking is titles to look for as you're like jacking around on LinkedIn trying to find positions, right? Like project management jobs, hugely fantastic fit for an English major. As a project manager, you are running a project, but you're doing a lot of communications as a project manager. You're tracking a lot of in-flight tasks. You're bringing a bunch of groups together. Product management, you're doing something similar to that. It's a little bit different, right? I'm not a big fan of being a project manager. I like being a product manager a little bit more. But you're still having like a lot of those conversations. And so as you think about like job roles, look at analyst roles, business analyst roles. Look, business analysts, if you aren't aware, business analysts are usually kind of helping project managers, and they're doing a lot of documentation, note taking in calls, digesting what people are saying and getting that stuff documented so that you can share that stuff out and have a good idea of what you actually talked about. You might be mind blown to learn that a lot of humans have meetings, finish the meeting, go to another meeting, finish the meeting, go to another meeting, no longer remember anything that they talked about 2 meetings ago, like at all, right? So having those notes, and granted, transcription services and things are making that a little bit easier nowadays, but analyst roles, project management roles, product management roles, consulting roles, obviously tech writing roles. Kyle, I feel like you're the one who like stayed true, right? Like when I got my technical writing degree, I was like, oh, I'm 100% going to go into tech writing, and I almost did. I almost moved to Memphis for it, and decided I didn't want to do that, and wound up going down a different path. But like, look at those writer roles, look at those editor roles. But there are more things that you can do unrelated to like the job titles that you might normally look for. And this is where, again, growing that network is really helpful. So like, I want to offer anyone that wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, like, reach out, send me messages. I'm happy to help you look around. LinkedIn's a great place to look for jobs. But if you feel like really strongly pulled to a specific company, they have all of their jobs on their actual website. Go look at that, right? Like if you go look at Vanderbilt's positions, you're going to see a lot more through Vanderbilt's careers website than you're going to see Googling around on LinkedIn. So I think that's an important thing to understand, is like, don't pigeonhole yourself into looking for some specific role. Like open up that window a little bit and look at some different roles that you may not be aware of yet. And hey, all of you are using ChatGPT to write your papers anyway. Ask ChatGPT, what are some great titles to look for as I'm trying to find a job, right? Like it's a good tool for something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I also would say anything you can do to, again, get your foot in the door and learn more about a role, but also just, now I'm losing my train of thought because I've been meeting all day. So I'm just going to keep talking until I find it. One second. This is what I do sometimes. Let me come back to it. Sorry, I had a great thought. I'll come back to it.
Thought I had back to what Dr. Hurst was saying. If you're a creative writing major, maybe only one or two of you might have success in that, writing a novel or a screenplay. It took me like, I was pretty stubborn and narrow-minded, like, got to do creative writing, got to publish a book of poems. So it took me like until I got this job to realize I just liked the process of writing. Didn't have to be creative. It didn't have to, use my brain, to create something. I just like, research to publish, I just like that entire process and what it encompasses. So
I remembered it. Okay, so I've interviewed enough, been on enough interview panels myself from the other side of the desk to also think that this is pretty common now. There's a growing awareness that no candidate is ever going to perfectly fit the job description. And more people, more recruiters, more hiring committees are recognizing that, which also means that if you don't match any of the criteria, you probably don't want that job in the first place. But if you don't match every single one in a job description, that does not mean you're not going to get the job, does not mean you're not going to get an interview, does not mean you shouldn't consider it. And so I think that is something English majors in particular think, oh, I can't do these things, I don't have it on my resume. You can do a lot of the things. And so being able to tell that story is important.
100%. And when a job lists a bunch of majors and says or related field, English is always a related field. There's other than maybe like, surgeon, like you might need a little bit extra bonus for that. But like there is always a space for English majors in pretty much any profession that you can possibly think of. So I want to end today just with some maybe final advice or parting words that you may have for current students or recent alumni about careers, about their major, anything along those, anything you would like to share that you wish maybe you had known back in the day.
A couple of things I'm thinking of. If you have an idea, just follow through with it. It might be a really great idea, or the worst thing somebody can say is no. So as long as you like persist and follow through on an idea, that's very important. What was the other thing? Explore the uncomfortable. That's I think for me, like getting this job in a corporate industry, tech industry, coming from my previous job specifically, like we didn't have meetings, we didn't have virtual meetings, that kind of thing. So I was uncomfortable, getting in this Zoom environment. So that's just one specific example of like, lean into the uncomfortable, and it's always going to be a growing experience, either personally or professionally.
Yeah, along those lines, don't shy away from those things you think you can't do. You can. Having the confidence to go after them is something I was not very aware of. But also having strong feelings, like understand who you are, like that is going to actually take you far professionally. What do I like to do? What brings me joy? I'm not saying that work is going to always bring joy, and a lot of times it doesn't. Nor should you accept a low-paying wage because it is a role, a passion role. Don't do that. But I think there are a lot of things of just knowing yourself that can lead you in the right direction. I will also say this is honestly the same advice I would give to somebody like myself, at least in a yoga class. People are always paying less attention to you than you think. So don't be afraid to fail. Failure is actually a benefit, and it helps you get towards success. So you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about what you like and don't like and what works for you and what you can handle.
Yeah, I'm glad I went last on this one because that's a great point, right? Perfection is the enemy of progress, or whatever they say. And in tech specifically, I'm sure all of us have heard fail fast, right? Like go and jack stuff up, right? Like my boss is big on like, oh, you don't know the answers, go break it, right? Like make sure that you fully understand it, just go do it on your own. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot to having the confidence and the self-awareness to just be like, hey, look, I might mess up and that's okay. Uh, People mess up all the time. I mean, look at big companies. They're constantly doing shady stuff and messing with our data, right? Like, I mean, how often are we having a data leak? People are always going to have some kind of failure. Just try to keep your failures not to the point where you're making my data free to everybody online, and I'll be appreciative of that. But I think some things to consider, right? Like fail fast, don't be afraid to try something new. All the things that Kyle and Leah have said are fantastic. I know I've already kind of shared things that I consider, but I guess one of the things that I would want to say is I'm trying to think of something unique now that everybody said all the really good ones, and I'm not running out into anything super.
I got one for you, Dylan, actually.
All right,
So
go.
another thing is that you don't have to necessarily always be unique or offer something brand new. You also need to be a really good person to work with. And I've enjoyed your company on this call, Dylan. So I would consider you a success at that. So
Well, I appreciate that, and as you say that, I think I figured out what I wanted to say, and it was based off of what you had said a second ago, because I think I struggle personally with what you were suggesting, and I think other people probably struggle with it as well, and it's knowing yourself, right? Like understanding what you want. If you were to ask me today, and I can tell you this with complete truth because my boss asks me every damn week, what do I want to do? Right? Like, what is it that I want? I don't know. I've never known what I wanted to do. I knew when I was a senior in high school that I wanted to be an English teacher and coach baseball. In the back of my mind, I still want to do that. It's not what I'm at right now. It's not the point that I am in my life. And so I don't know what I necessarily want to do. I'm just kind of taking it as it comes. And I think that's okay, right? Like, I don't think you have to know all the answers, especially not now. I think you start to solve that problem as you go forward, right? Like I know what I think my next step should be. I don't know necessarily what 5 steps from now are, but I kind of have an idea of what that next step might be. And I think that's a really hard thing to understand. But I also want to say, because I also struggle with this, you do not have to achieve the high end thing immediately, right? Like if you whether you want a tech job or not, and you're watching a recording of this, like take the entry level job, right? Like that's okay. It might be a struggle at the beginning. You might need to do something to make things work the way that you want them to work, but you don't have to skip all the hard work and get to the end goal. You know, when you think about um, when you think about like professional athletes, like they're there because they put a lot of hours worth of work in. They haven't always been at that level. And so I think you've got to go on your own little journey to get to the point where you get ultimately where you want to be. And I being okay with not having everything come to you immediately is going to make your mental health way better.
All wonderful advice and all things I wish I could have told baby Aaron back in the day as well. So, thank you all so much for your time today and for your knowledge and your wisdom and for giving back to our wonderful English majors here at UT. Thank you for all, yeah, again, just everything you do. And have a wonderful day.